I am very, very proud this morning to have as our first guest ELISE Stefanik. As you know, she announced yesterday that she would be the Republican conservative candidate for mayor or for governor next year. I want to give you a little bit of background of ELISE. You probably know a lot of this because she's been out there accomplishing a great deal over a number of years, but ELISE was first elected to Congress in 2014. At that time, she was the youngest woman in history to ever be elected to Congress. ELISE was born in Albany, and at the age of 14, she was featured in a Times unit profile about U.S. Senator Al D'Amato, saying that she supported the Republican view. So, from early on, she had values. She graduated from Harvard University, a very smart, obviously, individual. She worked in the Bush administration as a staff member for U.S. domestic policy. She was elected to Congress in 2014, 16, 18, 20, 22, and 24. She has a strong pro-Israel supporter. She is a very strong pro-New York supporter. So, ELISE, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here, and I more than appreciate the fact that you've committed to run this race.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Ralph. It's great seeing you over the years as I've campaigned in Erie County, helping local candidates. And we had a great day yesterday, a great launch. And I will tell you, it's not just Republicans and conservatives, independents. Even Democrats across the state have felt that Kathy Hochul has failed them. So there's a lot of energy with our great launch.
Look, Kathy Hochul, in my opinion, is the worst governor in this country. I've known that woman for decades, and she is extremely shallow. She puts her finger up in the air and decides where the political waves are going, and that's where she goes. This is a woman who actually was in Congress one term in the most Republican seat, and now is clearly a socialistic Democrat. I mean, she's made that flip.
She has, and I call and have dubbed Kathy Hochul the worst governor in America, and boy, does it stick. She's also an accidental governor, Ralph. As you know, in 2022, the only reason Kathy Hochul was even on the ballot is because that was when Cuomo was pushed out. Kathy Hochul was chosen as Cuomo's sort of do-nothing LG to just be out there at ribbon cuttings. This is not someone who has gone through the primary process among even registered Democrats across New York State. She's going to this time, as her own hand-picked Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado is primarying her, which says a lot. This is the number 2 that she chose, she handpicked, and he has had a front row seat of her failures. And these are the top failures of Kathy Hochul among many. New York is the most unaffordable state in the nation because of Kathy Hochul's failed leadership. We have the highest taxes, the highest energy bills, utility prices, rent, groceries, construction costs. We are the most burdensome state when it comes to regulations facing small businesses, literally ranked 50th across the country for being able to own and run and start a business. And Kathy Hochul owns that. The reality is Democrats have had the governor's seat for 20 years next year, and enough is enough. We face a mass exodus of people and businesses, crushing unaffordability here, and frankly, corruption in New York State, all led by Kathy Hochul. So what does Kathy Hochul do? She endorses this communist mayor of New York City. And we know why, Ralph. It's because that she is desperately afraid of losing her far left, and she can't coalesce the Democrat Party. They're seeing the same polls that we are, which is not only is she very vulnerable statewide in a general election, but in a primary, she can't break 50% among registered Democrats. And so she puts New Yorkers last and handed over New York City to this communist.
She endorsed him. He did not endorse her.
He did not endorse her, and that is a running theme you're seeing among elected New York Democrats. Even in my district, there is a moderate Democrat who was just elected in a special election for New York Assembly. The first press conference he had, he refused to endorse Kathy Hochul because of her just abysmal leadership. And folks in Western New York and Erie County in particular know her well. This is someone who started off on the town burg of Hamburg, which, by the way, we're so proud that flipped to Republican hands this past local election
That's
cycle.
exactly right.
She tried to run
her own hometown.
Her hometown flipped.
Turned to, we were
flipped.
able to be successful with Republican conservative candidates in her own hometown.
Exactly. That was a big bright spot, and I believe that Kathy Hochul will lose Western New York, specifically Erie County, in this upcoming governor's race. She also pointed out, and this is important for viewers to know, when she was elected to Congress, she was fired after one term. So we're going to fire her after her full term as governor as well. This is a theme in her career. It is an accidental failed governor, and everybody knows it. It's not even a behind-closed-doors secret. State Democrat senators say that she is abysmal in her just failed leadership, and people are hurting. People across New York are hurting.
I want to get into some of what she's done as she became governor. Her first executive order, for example, her first executive order was to make New York a sanctuary state. Tell us a little bit about, where that's brought us.
Yes, on day one, Kathy Hochul signed her first executive order, which was to continue New York as a sanctuary state. What that means is putting illegals first and New Yorkers last. That has led to violent crime committed by illegal migrants against New Yorkers, including burning a woman alive on the subway.
Incredible.
Kathy Hochul testified in front of me in Congress, and she didn't even show any compassion. She didn't show any knowledge of the fact that that happened. So it was a dismissiveness that is condescending to New Yorkers, and frankly, it's offensive. People are losing their lives because of these illegal migrants. And then let's talk about the economic piece of sanctuary state policies. This is billions, tens of billions of U.S. New York hard-earned taxpayer dollars that are funding migrant housing, illegals healthcare, illegals school. And New York taxpayers are footing this bill. So ending that sanctuary state policy on day one, which will be an executive order I am committed to on day one, will not only make New York safer, it will make it more affordable because we're not going to be wasting tens of billions of our hard-earned taxpayer dollars going towards illegals.
I watched that clip of you in Congress interviewing her with regard to this, and she sat there and basically had no answer for all of what you put forth in front of her. I mean, she is going, I doubt she's going to be willing to debate you. She's going to have to, but clearly you're head and shoulders above what she's capable of.
I've had a lot of different witnesses in front of me in Congress over the years, cabinet secretaries, I've done congressional delegations with head of states, and I've had university presidents who I've forced to be fired. Kathy Hochul was the most unprepared witness I've ever seen, and she was sitting on the dais with other very bad governors. They had Pritzker, you had Tim Walz, and yet Kathy Hochul was an embarrassment for all New Yorkers in how, again, she didn't even feign knowledge of the fact that these sanctuary state policies, which she signed with an executive order, have led to loss of life in New York, horrible crimes. So in addition to the burning of the woman alive on the subway, rapes of minors, murders. I mean, this is a consistency because of Kathy Hochul, and it's also tied into the failed bail reform, which has led to this crime crisis as well. But it's the taxpayers who are footing this bill. We are footing this bill for this incompetence, and enough is enough. New Yorkers deserve a governor that puts New Yorkers first, and Kathy Hochul has put New Yorkers last.
So I do want to ask you about a couple of things. The electric mandate, for example, that's supposed to come into effect January 1st. Every new construction building, 7 stories or less, must be all electric. That is devastating to Western New York.
It's devastating to Western New York. It's devastating to all of New York. The electric mandate and the gas stove ban starting January 1st is going to skyrocket the cost of construction. It's going to skyrocket the cost of electricity. It's also a public safety issue. When you think about the blizzards, for example, that happen both in Western New York and the Northway, that natural gas is important for safety and security, literally to heat people's homes. Kathy Hochul is putting lives at risk. People will die because of the gas stove ban and this all-electric mandate. And, already Democrats are trying to tell her, just pause it for a year until after the election. Just like she did with congestion pricing, if you remember, Ralph.
Yes.
She paused that until after the election and then raised taxes, very similar to what Cuomo did with fracking, where he only made a decision after he won election and then he put a moratorium, crushing energy independence in New York State. I'm not going to let Kathy Hochul get away with it. We need a full repeal of this outrageous, insane law. And I'll tell you, when we talk to our colleagues in Congress from other states, the New York members, whether it's Langworthy or Claudia Tenney or myself, we have these conversations. Other states cannot believe that this is the reality in New York State. They don't believe it's even true because it's so outrageous, this gas stove ban and all-electric mandate. And it's going to be very detrimental to our economy. It's going to destroy, just further create the unaffordability crisis as energy prices continue to skyrocket.
I know that affordability is one of your major issues, and Kathy Hochul wants to talk about it, but like you just said, this electric mandate, we had Phil Nanula on from Essex Homes, and he talked about the fact that every single new construction is going to cost people at least $15,000 to $25,000 more for the construction, and then it's going to cost them more for electric energy along the way, and that's if the grid can handle it, which it clearly can't. So
the grid cannot handle it, and that's exactly right. The business owners will tell you, the developers, and also just homeowners, renters, people don't want this electric mandate. We want to be able to have affordable, abundant energy in the form of natural gas. And this ties in very much to the economic malaise that has been happening and the decay in upstate New York, particularly Western New York and the Southern Tier. This ban on fracking has been so negative to New York's economy. Meanwhile, you look over the border to Pennsylvania, which, by the way, has a Democrat governor, and you have energy booming. It is affordable. It is abundant. It has created billions of dollars of economic development and tens of thousands of jobs. And then you look at across the New York border, these small towns and communities have been completely hollowed out, and it's a result of her policies. So we're going to have this discussion about affordability. It played out in the mayor's race in New York City where Mamdani ran on affordability, but the reality is it's Democrats' single-party rule that has caused this unaffordability crisis, and we're going to hold them accountable for it.
So Mamdani wins by 50.4% of the vote, the lowest in a Democratic primary for the winner, I believe, in recent history. So, while he's the winner, clearly there's plenty of Democrats in New York City, plenty of Democrats who realize that this far turn to the left is a huge mistake. And Kathy's right there.
Absolutely. Kathy propelled his candidacy. When New Yorkers were looking for leadership, and this would have never happened, by the way, had Cuomo been governor, because the Mamdani rise just wouldn't have even happened. It would have been crushed early on. Kathy Hochul propelled him. She legitimized and embraced this march towards socialism and communism. She hasn't condemned a single one of his positions. She hasn't condemned his calls to defund the police. She hasn't condemned his calls to abolish private property, to legalize prostitution, to literally seize the means of production. This is what this candidate Mamdani said. He has a record of saying this in the assembly. And you're right, Ralph. While people are pointing to his win both across the state and nationally, the fact that he barely got over 50%, that shows to me how weak Kathy Hochul will be going into this general election. Because as you and I know, New York City Democrats outnumber Republicans 7-1. And the fact that the Democrat nominee, even though he's a socialist, he was on the Democrat line, he could barely get a majority. That means that nearly 50% of New York voters, encompassing a lot of Democrats, realized this is too far gone, and they're never going to forgive Kathy Hochul for this. And Kathy Hochul has been heckled as she desperately tries to coalesce Mamdami's support. His voters are heckling her. They did it at the rally in Queens. They just did it when Kathy Hochul flew to Puerto Rico the day after Mamdami's win to try to coalesce the far left. They heckled her off stage there.
I saw how Lee Zeldin went into New York City, and, he went into the strongholds of the Democrats, and he came out with a number of votes on that line. I think you're going to do so much better certainly in upstate. I think you're going to be a star, but I think you're going to do so much better even in New York City, even in Democratic territory, because you're the voice of reason. They're the voice of the far left. I can't fathom that somebody, a Democrat, is willing to call themselves a socialist. I mean, 20 years ago, that never could have happened, and today it happens on a regular basis in the far left Democratic Party, which is where Kathy Hochul is at this point.
Yes, it's been a full-blown socialist takeover of the New York Democrat Party on Kathy Hochul's watch. And we remember, this was an issue that Cuomo had to deal with when he was governor, and he was able to keep control of the New York Democrat Party and push off the Democrat socialists, the far left. Kathy Hochul has turned it over to them and has surrendered this to the socialists because she's a weak and accidental governor, and it's why she's the worst governor in America. And New Yorkers are smart. New Yorkers are going to turn out in droves to vote against Kathy Hochul. And upstate, we will boost turnout. We will have to win Western New York, which I know we will. Her numbers are abysmal. And as you know, I've been doing events in Erie County for years. You and I met years ago as we've worked to support local candidates. And I'm a worker. Kathy Hochul is not going to out-upstate ELISE STEFANIK. And when I started considering running, remember when Hochul tried to redefine herself as a mom from upstate? Well, this mom from upstate is going to defeat Kathy Hochul and save New York by unifying Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, and independents, the people, to fire her.
So I am so proud to be 1,000% supporter of yours. I know my party, the next time we meet here in Erie County, will endorse you 100%. You have my full support. You'll have the full support of the Republican Party. I believe you'll have the full support of the Conservative Party. And I believe you'll have the full support of independents and Democrats across this state. I know that your time is valuable. I know you've got to go to another thing. I really appreciate you coming on to talk to Western New Yorkers.
This is great. I'll be on again, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks. So hearing ELISE is certainly a very important aspect of where we are at this point in time. So she's made the announcement. We've been waiting for that. ELISE, you're going to hear, is head and shoulders above Kathy Hochul. So we're going to have Carl Calabrese on with us now. Carl, as you know, was served as on the town council of the town of Tonawanda in the late 80s, was town supervisor in the late 90s and early 2000. President of the Association of Erie County Governments, deputy county executive under Joel Giambra, was an adjunct professor at SUNY Buffalo, teaching undergraduates and graduate level courses in public policies, was a partner in a lobbying firm, a frequent commentator on local, state, and national politics. I mean, there's nobody around here that knows politics, especially local politics, better than Carl Calabrese. So, Carl, are you with us?
I sure am, Ralph. Good to be with you as well.
All right, I appreciate. So now, Carl, I want to play a clip of ELISE STEFANIK in Washington interviewing Kathy Hochul in a congressional hearing. So let's take a listen to this.
We do cooperate fully with ICE in criminal prosecution. Our sanctuary
You're not advocating for these victims.
Only deal
this
with
is a 5-year-old who was raped on Long Island in Nassau County. You are not advocating on behalf of these victims. You are shielding illegals. Even in your opening statement, you prioritize putting illegals first.
That is not
Rapes
true.
of young girls, beatings of NYPD cops by illegals who are here under Kathy Hochul's failed policies, burning New Yorkers alive. This is Kathy Hochul's New York. It's one of the many reasons why you're hemorrhaging support from hardworking New York
families. These are
families.
horrific crimes, and they're heartbreaking.
They're horrific crimes that are committed on your watch. You signed this executive order on your first day in office. You signed it again and again this January. We deserve a governor who stands up for law-abiding New Yorkers, doesn't put illegals first, but actually puts New Yorkers first. I appreciate
Rather than going after the viral moment, I suggest you look at the facts.
I'm standing up for New Yorkers.
No.
Rather than addressing the illegals in New York, you are prioritizing your far-left sanctuary state policies, which you put in place with executive orders. Instead of advocating for victims, a 5-year-old who was raped,
with ICE.
you did not. They were released because of sanctuary state policies in New York State. No amount of words is going to clean up your failed record and these horrific crimes committed in sanctuary state that you created. And with that, I yield back.
So, Carl, what do you think? Tell us what your opinion is of that interview and of ELISE Stefanik.
Well, I mean, that was just a devastatingly effective beatdown of Kathy Hochul by ELISE Stefanik at that committee hearing, and it goes along with the beatdown she gave to the university presidents about anti-Semitism on their campuses. I mean, this is one tough lady, and I think, for those of you who are boxing fans, one of the greatest heavyweight fights of all time was Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier in the Thrilla in Manila. I think we're going to see that kind of brawl coming this fall between Kathy Hochul and ELISE Stefanik.
Do you think Kathy is willing to debate ELISE?
She may have to, but it'll be one debate, and it may be very early so that she can overcome any disadvantages she puts herself in, that being Kathy Hochul. But I mean, she's not going to be anxious to debate her, and I think she's going to try to avoid it as long as possible because, I mean, this Congresswoman is one tough lady who can debate, and she's aggressive. And, Democrats in this state are not used to being hit head-on by an aggressive Republican on policy issues. And that's what I think this campaign is going to be on the part of ELISE Stefanik.
ELISE is a Harvard graduate, so obviously she's a bright woman. But she's tough. She's a go-getter, but she has the ammunition, Carl. I mean, she has the ammunition.
No question about it. I mean, in every measurement of this state's operation, we're failing. I mean, high taxes, high regulation, high out-migration of people to other states like Florida in the South. I mean, I read today that our budget in this state is twice that of Florida's, twice, and they've got more people. I mean, it's just a very inefficiently run state. It's run like the old Tammany Hall. It's a clubhouse political operation to reward the friends of the Democrat Party and punish the opponents. And they use the public treasury to make those rewards. And that's been going on for a long time with all the different lobbies led by the teachers' unions, public employee unions. And, that's how the state is run. And people are voting with their feet. And the problem is the people who vote with their feet are people who would probably vote Republican, but they go to other states and vote Republican there. And what's left behind is a greater and greater majority of Democrats. And that's the hill that ELISE Stefanik is going to have to climb up. And is that, 3.2 million more Democrats voters in this state than Republicans. That's
but by every measure that counts, New York is last in the business sector. In every measure that counts, we are dead last. How can people be willing to sustain that, to keep that, to allow 20 years worth of Democratic rule that keeps us in that position? And as you said, the people that earn the living, the people that are paying the bills, are leaving this state.
We've been last in everything for a long time, Ralph. And in fact, one of the things I follow every 2 years, George Mason University puts out a list of the freedom in the 50 states, it's called. And they measure individual liberty and freedom by all kinds of measurements, taxes, regulation, and even things like, are you required to wear a helmet if you ride a motorcycle? Can you buy fireworks? Those types of things. Every single year since I've been following it, I've been following this for a decade, every single report that comes out, New York is either 49th or 50th in freedoms or lack thereof. But, I mean, it's been going on for a long time. And, last time Republicans won a statewide race was almost 20 years ago. And so people just habitually vote for the candidate with a D after their name. We see that in the city of Buffalo as well. One-party rules since the 60s. And people continue to put into power the party that has produced those results. And it's very frustrating because you think eventually, people will say, I want a better product, and I'm willing to try a different company, or in our case, a political party, to see if they can produce more. But it's just, in this state, you got a D after your name, you are starting off with one big advantage in terms of the history of voting in New York.
So, Carl, we have Russ Gugino with us. He has a question for you.
Hey, Carl. It's great to hear your voice. On the outward migration thing, I wanted to give a couple of numbers so that people, when they hear the term outward migration, they don't necessarily relate to, well, how does that affect the state? Since Kathy Hochul has been in Albany since 2020, the Wall Street Journal said that 225,000 people have left New York State, averaging with an average income of $115,000, and that $14 billion has permanently left this state on an annual basis. Now, what I heard Mondami say the other day was, I don't care if they leave. And the question was, how could you say that? As long as they make their money here, whether they leave New York, they're taxable, and we're going after them. It's almost a war against people who are making money.
I would disagree with one thing you said. It's not almost a war. It is a war against people who are making money and are productive and employ folks and create jobs. It is a war. And I can only imagine what Mondani is going to do to the city of New York. And talk about out-migration of people and money and jobs. I think it's going to be it's going to be a hemorrhaging in terms of out-migration when this guy really gets toked up in his administration. And so I think the worst is yet to come, especially for New York City. And the other thing it affects us with, Russ, is the congressional seats that follow the every 10-year census. And by all measurements, if present trends continue, after the next census, New York is going to lose probably at least 2 congressional seats. Should have lost 2 in the last one, but it turns out that the Biden census count cooked the books and undercounted red states and overcounted blue states and minimized the switch from blue to red. I don't think that's going to happen in the next census, and so you're going to see New York lose at least 2 more congressional seats, which brings our influence in Congress down at the expense of other states that have gained. So there's lots of ramifications to people leaving in terms of money, jobs, companies, just intellectual capital, and congressional influence.
So, Carl, what do you think? Mondami won by 50.4%. That certainly is no major plurality. So there are a lot of people who certainly still don't want to go that far to the left, even though they're Democrats. I see that as an opening for us, as a window for us, an opportunity for us, and certainly for Elise.
Well, the question is, he did win 50% in a 3-way race, which makes it a little more impressive. But you're right. There are a lot of people that want no part of this guy. But, hey, elections have consequences. And these folks in New York City, a majority voted for him. When I saw the final results, Ralph, I thought of that famous quote that Ed Koch made after he lost a race. He said, "The people have spoken, and now they must be punished." So I think that may await the 40% or so that voted against him. We'll see what happens with these in terms of opportunities. Where is the opportunity going to come from? Is it going to come from within the Democrat Party? Because I don't see the Republican Party in New York City being that alternative under current circumstances. It could change in the future, but right now, if there's going to be opposition to Mondani, it's going to be within the Democrat Party. And thus far, the Democrat Party has proven very reluctant to challenge its own left-wing base. And boy, this guy is about as left-wing base as you're ever going to get. And so, will they take him on? Will they support him? Right now, from what I'm watching, listening to on TV, more and more Democrats, so-called establishment Democrats, seem to be lining up behind this guy.
Well, but you're going to find, in my opinion, Cuomo's not going to be behind Kathy Hochul. Mondami hasn't endorsed Kathy Hochul. She stands out there by herself.
She does.
So I absolutely think this is still a great opportunity for us. Lee Zeldin went into New York City. What's the magic number? Is it 28%? What do we have to get out of New York to have a win across the state?
I think Lee Zeldin was shooting for the 30 to 32% range. He ended up with about 25. Had he gotten that 30, 31, 32, he would have been the governor. So, yeah, if you can get 1 out of 3 votes in the city, given the history and the voting history of the rest of the state, you can win the race. Now, how do you do that? The thought was that minorities were moving towards the Republican Party. That was true until last Tuesday when you look at the numbers, minorities moved back to the Democrats. Young people moved back to the Democrats. So we're going to have to really sharpen our message going forward if we want to bring back those folks who voted for Trump in 2024 going into the midterms and the next presidential election. I think that's going to be incumbent on our party, Republican Party, and the Conservative Party, to really sharpen the message and speak to the things that are important to the people in New York City, in New York State, that they'll feel comfortable either voting for the first time for a Republican conservative or coming back to a Republican conservative.
One of the thoughts that I had was, do you know who Bobby Ann Cox is?
I do not.
So Bobby Ann Cox is an attorney in New York City who's been very vocal throughout the state and has traveled throughout the state. She's challenged, she initially won fame by challenging the law that was passed that allowed New York State to quarantine people for any reason. I mean, New York State gave the authority to medical groups to be able to quarantine people, and she won lawsuits on that. So here was my thought. I've met her and talked to her a number of times. She's an extremely articulate woman. One of my thoughts was there are over 3 million gun owners in New York State. And we all know that if gun owners voted, we would win these elections. And yet they don't. My thought was that ELISE should have someone like Bobby Ann Cox, whose sole job it is to crisscross this state, to go to gun clubs and to make sure these gun owners are registered and to energize these gun owners to actually vote. What are your thoughts about that?
Would endorse and support that 100% because as a gun owner and a member of the NRA, this is one of the most frustrating aspects of conservative people is that we've got all of these gun owners, as you mentioned, millions, who would most likely vote Republican conservative, just sitting on their hands. And how do we contact them and get them registered and get them motivated? Well, you start by having an effort, as you just described, something like that, some type of organized effort with a high-profile person really making a full-court press across the state, gun clubs, sportsmen's clubs, all of the different hunting groups, and making sure these people vote. And this is a structural problem for the Republicans, conservatives as well. We know that Trump supporters, the so-called MAGA people, do not vote when he's not on the ballot. When he's on the ballot, they come out in droves. When he's not on the ballot, they don't vote. And we saw that in this year's election. And if it's not corrected, it's going to happen again because Donald Trump will not be on the ballot for the midterms, and he will not be on the ballot in 2028. So that's a structural issue conservatives, Republicans have to get a handle on. How do we get these people out to vote, motivated and out to vote? And certainly starting with the 3 million folks who own firearms in the state that don't vote, that would be a great place to start and make some headway.
To me, this is one of the ways to accomplish it, is to go right to the gun clubs, because there's a huge group, 3.4 million gun owners in New York State, a huge group. And unfortunately, most of them don't vote. And if every one of them registered and if they voted, I agree with you, they would vote on our side of the aisle. And when you look at these races, Lee Zeldin lost by 337,000 votes. A small number, comparatively speaking, to the number of gun owners that we have, that if they would have voted, you win this race by less than the number of gun owners we have in New York State.
Right. And Ralph, the other group that tends to have a low percentage voting that would probably vote our way are Christians, especially evangelical Christians, who don't want to get involved in politics even to the extent of voting. So there's another block of voters that may very well number a million plus. And you start putting these different groups together and, you know, making a real effort to get them registered and then turn them out. Now you start winning races. And this is exactly what states that have turned their voting demographic around have done. I'm talking about Florida. I'm talking about Pennsylvania. Both of those states have had real concentrated, focused, grassroots effort to get people registered to vote Republican. And Florida had flipped from majority Democrat enrollment to majority Republican enrollment, and Pennsylvania has taken, Pennsylvania Republicans took that state from 1 million plus more Democrats than Republicans down to 250,000 more Democrats than Republicans, and the trend is by 2028, Pennsylvania could be Republican enrollment. If it's not, it's going to be awfully close. So, you know, I've talked to party leaders, and I said maybe what we should do in Western New York is put together a study group and send them out to talk to people in Pennsylvania and Florida and find out, you know, the nuts and bolts of the operations they've put together to see that kind of results, and then determine what could be used in Western New York and Buffalo and bring it home and duplicate those programs. Otherwise, we're going to continue every year when the Board of Elections publishes its enrollment numbers to see the Republican movement drop farther and farther behind the Democrats.
Hey, Carl, Bob Davis here. You could not be more right. I mean, what we need is an aggressive, very aggressive voter registration drive. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
You know, the last time it was done in New York State was when George Pataki was governor and Sandy Treadwell was the state Republican chairman, and he designated me to head up that voter registration drive. And I don't know whether that's been done by the Republican Party in New York State since, and we're going back to the early 2000s when that occurred. But I want to talk about the numbers. You know, Carl, you know me well. I'm a numbers guy, an analytical guy when it comes to looking at numbers. And I was looking this morning at the numbers in Erie County in the Zeldin-Hochul race 3 years ago. And in Erie County, and you know this, Carl, and I know Chairman Larigo does, and Russ Cugino, George Pataki carried Erie County when he ran in 94, 98, and 02. If you carry Erie County when you're running for governor, you're going to win. And 3 years ago, Kathy Hochul carried Erie County by 20,000 votes. And I look at the town that I'm the Republican chairman in, Amherst. In Amherst alone, 3 years ago, Hochul beat Zeldin by 10,000 votes. Almost 61% of the vote in Amherst went to Hochul, a town that she once represented as a member of Congress. She no longer could ever represent that town now with her socialistic left-wing leanings. But in Amherst alone, we saw what happened on Tuesday night. We didn't win. But, you know, we came within 1,400 votes of winning that race for town supervisor. If ELISE Stefanik can run that strong in Amherst, she'll win Erie County. And if she wins Erie County, she's the next governor. So, as the Amherst Republican chairman, I can tell you right now, we're going to have a voter registration drive in Amherst, and we're gonna carry Amherst for ELISE Stefanik. And if we do, she'll carry Erie County. And that's what the numbers say. 20,000 we lost by in the county, 10,000 we lost by in Amherst 3 years ago. We got to flip it. We got to have a registration drive.
So, Carl, one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on again, and I appreciate you being here, is the organizational aspect of what we need to do, how we need to modify the committee system, how we need to get our voters, whether we need more social media, how we do that. And I know you're a student of this and you have your ideas. So that's what needs to be talked about. So tell me what your ideas are.
Well, I came up with this idea a number of years ago, and I've shared it with the last two or three county chairmen. They've chosen not to experiment with it, but my idea was this, that it starts with the model that we use in politics today is obsolete, and it's a model based on every election district having two Republican committee people and two Democrat committee people, and their job is to, get petitions signed to qualify candidates for the ballot, to hand out literature, register voters, and make phone calls on election night to get your vote out. Okay, fine. It's based on the supposition that you know your neighbors, that you can go to door and have a friendly reception because you know these people. Well, that's obsolete. Number one, people don't like to go door to door. People don't like to answer their doors. And people move so often that most folks don't know who their neighbors are. They know the 10 or 12 or 14 houses that have two or more Republicans in them, that when they go to get petitions, they can get their 25 signatures relatively quickly. And they go to the same 12, 13 houses every year to get those 25 signatures. And that's the extent of it. And I said, think about the network most people have outside of their own neighborhood. They probably have a bigger network in a town than they do in their neighborhood. And what I mean is, if you started asking committee people, who do you go to church with? Who do you send Christmas cards to? Who do you bowl with? Who do you golf with? Who's in your service club? Who's related to you that live within this town? You might get a much, much bigger list of people that, A, know you, and B, can be influenced by you, or at least take your recommendation. So my idea was to set up what I call the E-District. You still got your committee people. They still do those functions. But now the party chair every year sits down with each committee person and says, let's go through your list. Let's go through your contact, your influencer list, and let's put them in a computerized file. And throughout the campaign, we're going to send out electronically a message from you to your friends, relatives, bowling mates, whatever, saying, here's something I want you to know about my candidate for town supervisor, or here's something I want you to know about our candidate for county legislature. And you do that 3 or 4 times throughout a campaign, friend talking to friend electronically. I think that would vastly increase the reach and influence of Republican committee people beyond just the 10 or 12 houses in their district. And I've said to our chairmen over the years, why don't you at least try it? You can go to a town in Erie County, smaller town, not a big town, not a small town, but a mid-sized town, Lancaster, West Seneca, Orchard Park, something like that, and do a pilot program with that town share. Just set it up the way I described it, and see what the results are.
So to me,
try it.
Carl, I totally agree. To me, what I've tried to do is get emails for all of our people and try to be able to blast emails out, because you can do that fairly easily. But from everything I'm hearing from you, maybe the solution is people are on Facebook. I personally am not, but people are on Facebook. If you and people have dozens and dozens of Facebook friends. Maybe you formulate those committees by who is on your Facebook list, because those people, when you communicate with them, will respond.
Yeah, I mentioned emails, but you're right. I'm not on Facebook either, so I tend not to think of it. But an awful lot of people are, and that's just another vehicle to reach folks that you know that you have some level of influence over, that they'll at least listen to you and say, when it comes to voting for a town council person, I didn't know any of these folks, but Ralph has sent me 3 or 4 messages on Facebook or with the emails and recommends this person. I'm going to vote for that person. I just think it would vastly expand the reach, and it would use modern tools and kind of not completely do away with the old system, but augment it, supplement it with modern tools of influence and outreach.